Hello everyone, can you guys hear me? Right, thank you. So we are going to start this session now. Give me 10 seconds. Right. So let me also start sharing my screen. Good. Can you share my VS Code? Can you see my VS Code? VS Code window? And can you see a blank screen now? I think you can see it. Okay, so let's start the discussion. Hello everyone. My name is Amit. My name is Amit, and I'll be discussing with you today on Ansible Playbooks. Okay, so we will talk about Ansible Playbooks. All right, before we talk about playbooks, let's quickly recap on how Ansible works. Um, Also, what is Ansible? So Ansible is a configuration management tool which allows you to manage the configurations of a server. Okay, a server is nothing but a physical machine or a virtual machine which has operating system on top. So that means Ansible allows you to make changes on top of an operating system. And you can use Ansible to manage every part of the operating system, every configuration of the operating system. So let's say you want to create some users on an operating system, you want to install an application in an OS, you can use Ansible to do that. Now, why do we use Ansible? Why can't we manually manage configurations on an OS? That's because if we have to manage servers at a scale, right? For example, if we have 20 servers or 2000 servers, and on all of them we have to, let's say, install HTTPD package. How will you do that? It's impossible to manage 2000 servers manually. So we use some tools for automation, right? And one of the tools is Ansible. We have Puppet, we have Chef, we have CF Engine, we have many things along with Ansible, right? So Ansible is the most prominent and quite popular uh, configuration management solution. So such tools are called configuration management tools. How do they work? Again, it is a prerequisite for the session on what is configuration management and how do they work. But to come on the same page, let me take a little bit time to explain this. So let's say you have your farm or your, let's say, data center, maybe private data center, maybe cloud, whatever. And in the data centers, you have your servers, right? Let's say server 1, server 2, server 3, server 4, right? You have 4 servers. Now you want to manage these servers using Ansible. You want to manage the configuration uh, and the entire operating system setup using Ansible. So what do? You set up a server for yourself, which is known as Ansible control machine. Ansible control server. And on this, you install Ansible. Okay. To use Ansible, this machine has to be Linux. you cannot install Ansible on Windows. It has to be a Linux machine. So you install Ansible, and now we can use Ansible to connect to these servers in your data center and manage configuration on top of them, right? Let's say some servers have, this server has Linux-based operating system. This has Windows-based operating system. This one has Mac-based operating system. So there could be different flavors of servers that you want to manage. They all can be managed using Ansible, right? So first thing is we ensure that Ansible can connect to these systems. So the most used protocol for Ansible to connect the servers that it has to manage is SSH, Secure Shell. Okay, it can connect via SSH. Now, as of now, SSH only works for Linux and Mac based systems. If Ansible server has to connect to a Windows system, it uses another protocol called as WinRM, Windows Remote Machine. Okay, so most common protocol is SSH. So it uses SSH to connect to the machines. But for Windows machines, it uses WinRM. Generally, as an industry practice, Ansible is not used for managing Windows because Windows is delivered by Microsoft, and Microsoft has way more popular and way more capable solutions to manage corporate infrastructure. So Ansible is generally not used. It is not preferred for Windows. But if you want to do, if your life depends on it, you can use Windows RM. Right. So Ansible should be able to connect to these machines. Now, there could be thousands of machines in your data center, but you may not want to manage all of them using Ansible for whatever reasons. Right? Maybe some machines belong to some other team, or some machines belong to different policies. So you just want to manage a specified set of machines. That set of machines that Ansible can manage is called an inventory. Right? Inventory is nothing but a list of machines which Ansible can manage. It's a list, it's a plain text list, which is IP address of each machine that it can manage. Right? That's inventory. This inventory is read by Ansible to understand which machines can be managed. Okay? Then when you want to manage S1, S2, or S3, these servers are recognized by Ansible, and they are called as Ansible hosts. So this becomes host 1, let's say, host 2, and host 3. So these are Ansible hosts. These are the servers which can be managed by Ansible. Any server that can be managed by Ansible is an Ansible host. This is not a host because it is not being managed by Ansible. Right, so we have inventory, which is read by Ansible, and that decides which host can be managed. Then how does Ansible manage the host? Again, this is a prerequisite. You should already know it, but let's talk about that as well. Ansible uses modules. Modules are nothing but binaries which can execute on the host and perform all the configuration changes. Okay, I will come back to that. Now, let's say you want to manage the configuration of host 1, host 2, host 3. How do you do that? What you do is you write something called as a playbook. Okay, a playbook is nothing but a file which is written in a proper structure. It is generally in YAML format. You can also write it in JSON. So you write this playbook in YAML format, and here you define for each server, for example, for H1, what should be the operating system state? Like this package should be installed, this user should be created, this file should exist, or multiple files should exist. right? Similarly, for host 2, what should be the configuration? So you define in this playbook what are the configurations for each host. Now the configurations are defined and it is fed to Ansible, and Ansible can connect to the host, but to actually get these configurations deployed and applied on the host, Ansible cannot do it by itself. Ansible relies on modules. Modules are individual binaries which are very specific to individual um, configuration points or configuration items in an operating system. For example, if you say that, hey, I want to make sure that this package is installed on host 1, Ansible is going to make use of a specific module, maybe an app module or a package module, which will download the required package and install on the host. If you say I want to manage this particular file on host 2, then Ansible is going to make use of another module called file, which will be used to make that configuration which is defined here. Okay, so as a developer, you write the playbooks. Okay, this is the desired state of your server that you want to achieve. Right? I want host 1 to have this package, this user, this file, this file. That's a desired state that you want to achieve. But you don't manually make the servers according to your desired state. You just write it as code and feed it to Ansible. Ansible is going to realize or implement the desire, fulfill the desire here. Desire is fulfilled on these hosts. Am I making sense? Hopefully I am. I did not receive any message, but hopefully I am. Just give me a moment. Okay, so yeah, that's there. These are modules which are, when you install Ansible, these modules are already installed with it. So let me show you how you can write this, how you can write the playbook by making use of modules, how you can write the inventory, and then make your Ansible working. So for that, we need to have some systems. So I'm going to use my laptop as Ansible server. I cannot use my laptop, right? Because it needs to be installed on Linux, right? So just give me a second. Right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create 3 virtual machines. And all of them will be based on Ubuntu. Um, I'm not going to explain how am I creating these. So how do I use AWS to create these VMs? That's not the goal of today's session. Okay, so let's call this machine as Ansible control, and I will have two machines which I'm going to manage with Ansible, right? So I have three machines right now. I have three servers. One is Ansible control, which I'm going to use as my Ansible control system, right? Ansible system where I'm going to install Ansible. And the other two machines will be my host one and host two, which I'm going to manage using Ansible. Right. So let's open these instances and connect to them. I just need to get the terminal and that will be all. Right. So here is my terminal. My Ansible control system, right? I'm connected to it. And I'm now going to connect to the other two systems. So this is another one. I'll call it as host one. Right. So I have now three systems. Right. I don't need this browser anymore. I have three systems now. Let me also zoom in. And on this control system, I'm going to say apt install Ansible. Now, installing Ansible is not straightforward. You cannot find the Ansible package, but it is very easy. Install Ansible. Let's search for installing it. And if I say I want to install it on, where is the operating system? Specific operating systems. Yes, Ubuntu. These are the four commands that I want to run. That's the problem. We run this and then we run this. Like this, we can install Ansible. Let it finish. Done. So if I run the command Ansible, I will get some output. That means Ansible is installed. If I say Ansible version, yeah, so if I say Ansible version, we have installed Ansible version 2.17.4. Okay, you will see Ansible is based on Python, so it also install a lot of Python as well. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want the Ansible on this machine to be able to manage host 1 and host 2. I'm going to create a inventory file. Let's call it as Ansible inventory. Create a new file called inventory. Now I'm going to make entries for host 1 and host 2. I want Ansible to talk to host 1 and host 2. Okay, so host 1, let's call it as host 1 and host 2. And I'll say it can be reached at this is the host name for host 1. So manage. And this is the host name for host 2, the address. So I have two hosts in my inventory, host 1 and host 2. And host 1 has this particular host name as the address, and host 2 has this particular host name. You can provide IP address or the host name or the FQDN depending on how the machines are set up. Right? Save it. And first thing is we are going to test if Ansible can read all the machines from this inventory file and can connect to it. So I'm going to run a command called Ansible -I Ansible inventory. That means Ansible use this inventory and then use the module ping on all the systems. I'm going to talk about it later, what this command is doing. But if I run this command, just give me a second. Let's do this. Right. So I say Ansible connect to all hosts in my inventory. I get this error, fail to connect to the host via SSH, permission is denied. So looks like this Ansible control machine cannot SSH into my host, right? If you see the architecture, Ansible is supposed to SSH into my host. So I can set up a passwordless SSH right now. Okay, so I will generate a key, SSH key. Now again, this is an SSH concept. If you don't know it, you can look at it later. But what I'm doing is I'm generating a key pair, SSH key pair, and I'm going to populate my public key in all the hosts. So it's there. I'm going to print the and add it here. You will get the recording of this video, so Don't worry if you don't remember these steps. Right, done. Now, if I run the command, this one, I should get an error. I should get everything here. Okay, so it is fine. There is a warning that on this machine, we have old version of Python on these machines, but that is fine. Okay, so that is fine. We don't want to worry about it. It's just an information. Ignore the pink text. So here it says that Ansible use this inventory file. There are two hosts, host 1 and host 2. And I use a module called ping, which was supposed to run on all hosts. So on all hosts, that means host 1 and host 2 were connected to, and ping was executed on them. So a module is nothing but an independent binary, a small binary, which can be executed on the host to perform certain actions, certain configuration changes. This ping module does not make any configuration change. It just executes on the remote system and tells us if the remote system is reachable or was it able to successfully execute or not. So here it is success, output is success. So that's fine. Now, again, understanding of Ansible, the architecture that we just explained, SSH, hosts, inventory, modules. This was supposed to be a prerequisite for this class, but we have spent 30 minutes for that. Now let's come to the main part of the class, which is how do we write a playbook? Okay, how do we write a playbook so that Ansible can read the configurations on the playbook and apply it on the servers? Okay, so I'm going to write a playbook called, let's say, playbook 1.yml. And here I'm going to define some stuff. Let's say I want a user called Alice to be created on host 1 and 2. So I have two hosts. I want a user called Alice to be created on these two hosts, right? So right now, if I go to host 1 and if I say ID Alice, it will say no such user. There is no user called Alice. Same will happen in H2 as well. Sorry, ID Alice. No such user. Right? Now let's do that. Let's add a playbook, and here I will write a code. Right. So I'm writing a piece of code. It's in YAML format. Now again, if you're not familiar with YAML, you can read more about it, but it's like a list and structure of data. So this is a play that I'm writing in the playbook. Okay. I say that this play's name is manage both hosts. Then I will write a few tasks. A task is nothing but a list of modules which I want to use to manage the operating system configuration. Okay, so task is a list of modules. So there is only one item in the list, and the first item and the only item, the name is that I want to manage Alice user. For that, I will use a module called user. There is a module called user. So use that module and pass the parameter these to that module. Name, Alice, state, present. Right? So what I'm doing is I'm writing a play which is called manage both hosts. So this play is going to run on all the hosts which are defined in the inventory. And as part of the play, these tasks will be executed. That means these modules will be executed. Right now, there is only one module. I give it a name called manage Alice user. It uses the module user. Now, each module expects or can accept parameters, okay, arguments. Like if I am using user module, that means what user I want to manage, what should be the ID of the user, what should be the home directory of the user, what should be state of the user, should the user exist or should the user not exist, what should be the default shell of the user, and things like that. So I have chosen that I will pass the name, which is Alice. So I will tell this, I'm telling this module that the name of the user that you should manage is Alice, and ensure that the user is present. The state of that user is present. So when I run this playbook, the user Alice will be present on all the hosts. Okay, I save it. Now I'm going to say Ansible dash playbook. So this is the command line tool I will use. Ansible playbook dash I Ansible inventory. So use the inventory or host from this inventory and run the playbook playbook1.yaml. So get all the plays from playbook1.yaml and run it for all the hosts which are in this inventory. Okay, there is a, let's start with the not with the user because it needs configuration. Just give me a second. Let's comment this out. Right. Let's start with another task. Let's say I want to manage a file. Manage a file on all hosts. Manage a file. And I say let's say I want to copy a file, right? Destination is /tmp/file from Ansible, and content is hello from Ansible. So this one I have commented out. I will uncomment it very soon. I'm trying to achieve something else now. On all the hosts, I want to manage a file. That means I want Ansible to copy this content to this file on host 1 and host 2. I use a module called copy, which is going to copy some data to a target file. Okay, let's run this. Now the playbook is running and it says OK for host 1, OK for host 2. Sorry, let's ignore this one. Now it says a task. Task is manage a file, and it changed something on host 2, it changed something on host 1. That means some configuration was changed on both host 1 and host 2. And if you ask me, because I know the playbook that I have written, it would have created those files. If I go to host 1 and if I go to /tmp, there is this file called file from Ansible, which is recently created. This is created by Ansible. And if I print the file from Ansible text, I will see hello from Ansible. Where is this coming from? So we wrote a playbook. The playbook, we defined that we want to manage a file, and this should be the content of the file, and it should be existing at this place in the target host. Right? So this is how Ansible can do it. We can write multiple tasks like that. Now some tasks, when you want to apply them, they need admin access. For example, creating this file, it does not require any administrative permissions or permission elevation because anybody can create file in this directory. So Ansible, it connects to host 1 and host 2 and creates this file, which is fine. But if you want to create an LS user, you need elevated permissions. And if you just run this playbook now there are two tasks in the playbook. I run the playbook. For managing the file, it says, okay, the file already exists, so nothing needs to be done. But here we get an error like permission denied, cannot log etc password. That means it does not have the permission. This user does not have the permission. So we say, hey Ansible, now you should become root user. Become root user. Become true. Become is true. Become the root user and then perform this task. So I want Ansible to elevate its permissions and then apply those configurations. And now it works fine. It has created the LS user on both host 1 and host 2. So if I say ID LS here now, it gives me that LS has ID of 1001. Right? So this is how you can write a playbook to perform some actions. Let's say we can have multiple plays. A play is nothing but a set of tasks, right? I can create another play. Say manage host 1, right? And I want to write a task which creates another user, manage user Bob. And I say I want to use the user module. I will also say become is true, user module, name of the user is Bob, and the state is set. So I'm creating a task, but I want it to run only on host 1. So I can say host 1. So only apply this play, that means these collection of tasks, only apply it on host 1. Right? These collection of tasks apply on all hosts, but this one will only apply for host 1. So from inventory, only host 1 will be picked up and that this will be applied. Let's run this playbook. And you see here, manage user Bob, host 1. Are you guys with me? You can also do one thing. You can also, for some resources, you can also say state is equal to absent. So for host 1, if I say ID Bob, it exists. And maybe my boss says, hey, we want to make sure that Bob does not exist on any of these systems. Ensure that Bob does not exist. So I can create an explicit task and I can say, hey, use the user module, make sure that the Bob user is absent from host 1. In fact, I should do this. like this. I create another task called manage user Bob, which runs on all hosts, and it makes sure that Bob user is absent on all the hosts. Now please note Bob exists on H1 but does not exist on H2. Right? Let's run this playbook. Now it says manage user Bob, host 2. Ansible does not do anything. It says, okay, host 2 already matches the configuration. So nothing needs to be done. Host 1 was changed because host 1 already had some, I think it had the user Bob. So it changed the system, or it performed some action on the system to bring it to the desired state. Right? So now on host 1, Bob also does not exist. So we can explicitly mark a resource as absent. Right, so this is a very basic introduction. There are a lot of things. There are hundreds of modules we can look at. There are various ways to access the host from the playbook. There are advanced configurations which you can use to write in the playbook. You can generate the playbook automatically rather than manually, like I created just now. You can write your tasks. There are a lot of programmatical aspects in Ansible. You can write loops, you can write conditional operations, you can write dependent tasks. So there are a lot of things that we need to learn. I just wanted to give you an insight on how you can write a basic playbook to get up and running, and then you can go to your own start. Some Q&A. I can spend 5 minutes on questions. There's a question from Zakir. Little explanation on indentation. Indentation is not specific to Ansible. This indentation is thanks to YAML. So each indentation level means that the belongingness. So for example, name, host, and task, they all belong at the same level. That means they are all part of the same structure. But then task has some children elements, which is this. So these, each item starting with dash is a list. So this is a list of items. This is also a list of items. So it's a YAML syntax. You can find some good tutorials, 10-minute tutorials on YouTube for understanding this. It's not specific to Ansible. How can we see output of each task which is running? So when you run Ansible Playbook, you can also enable a flag called, let me see if I can show you. There is a flag called verbose. Okay. And let's apply the playbook, and I will just give me a second. Let's make some change on the playbook. Let's mark it as present. And when we run the playbook, I can say VVVV. Print more debug messages. Okay, so this is more detailed, and you can see here on host 2, it started creating the user, right? So there's an output here. Name, Bob, shell is set to bin sh, state is present, and things like that. Right? You can also limit the output. You can just say -v, which will give you a little bit more output like this. What Ansible Tower does. So Ansible Tower is like a central system. Think of it as Jenkins. for Ansible. It's a central machine which has a UI, web UI. You can log in using the web UI, create some servers or create inventory, connect to those inventory, and you can run kind of CI of Ansible. Okay. Mithil, thank you for answering Manjarika's question, Sarvesh's question. Thank you. Any more questions? I can spend maybe a couple of more minutes. What are best practices to store sensitive information like password while writing Ansible Playbook? So Ansible has something called as Vault. Right? So Ansible Vault is used to store sensitive data, sensitive files. You can use that. You can also use another key management service or encryption service like HashiCorp Vault and all you can use here. So yeah. Can we update inventory from Excel or do we have to do it manually? How will you manage Excel? Do you update Excel manually? So you can automate creation of inventory, right? By connecting it to a CMDB, like central database. So you can connect it to AWS, and from AWS, Ansible can automatically pull up all the instances and then can list down in the inventory. You can connect it to a CMDB server and then use that. So yeah, it is known as dynamic inventory in Ansible. Right? So you can connect with Cobbler. Then there are other solutions also. Yeah. So you can track hosts from multiple sources. You can track from cloud providers, LDAP, Cobbler, or enterprise CMDB systems. Okay. You can have inventory plugins. You can take those plugins and install and then connect to external providers. Okay. So if for AWS, we have an AWS plugin. For Azure, we will have a plugin. So yeah. Okay. Cool. So thank you guys for your time. And I hope you guys were able to make some sense out of this session. Hope it was helpful. And I'll see you in the next one. You will soon receive the recording of the video as well. Thank you and have a good day. Bye bye.